Hello everyone, welcome back to my AK Coding channel. Today is the next day of learning HTML. So in the previous video we have learned about HTML forms. In this video we will be continuing learning with HTML forms and their attributes. If you're ready, let's get started. Today's topic is about HTML forms attributes and validation. We'll learn how to add attributes for forms and basic validation with forms attribute. So form attributes in HTML. HTML form elements can be customized with various attributes. I've already told about what is attribute and where we can use. It's just a kind of helper function for our HTML. We have common attributes for form attributes including required, placeholder, label, name, and value. These attributes enhance usability and provide basic validation. We have three required attributes. The required attribute ensures that a field must be filled out before submitting the form, which means the required attribute, if you don't fill the input or the form that's showing to you, you cannot submit it. This is a simple form of client-side validation. So the form will not submit if the required fields are empty. Here, as you can see, we have a form tag, right? And we have label, which is a name for name, and we have an input, which is the type is text. We have talked about the type in the previous video, and we have an ID, which is called name, and we have a name, which is called name. And there is an attribute which is required. You can see required, name, ID, type, all of them are the attributes of the input. So we have a button type, we have button tag, which is a type is submit and submit. If you do not fill this input, you cannot submit the form. So let's see in our Visual Studio Code first as a practice. So I will back to my Visual Studio Code and I will make it a bit bigger for you to see better. And I will open new lesson called lesson 8.html, and we need the basic HTML structure, and we'll write form. Instead of our form we have label, which stands for name, and we'll write here also name. Then we have an input, the type is text, and we have an ID, for example name, and we have name attribute, name, and we have like important attribute, which we are going to see how it works, which is required. And after that I will write button, and the type we have to write an attribute type which is submit, and we'll give the value also submit. Now let's see in our live server. Okay, we will go back. So we'll wait a few seconds. So we have here, and if I don't fill up this input and if I try to press this button, it's saying please fill out this field, because we put this attribute and this is saying it's requiring that I need to fill. If I filled, and then I can submit it. As you can see, it's already submitted. So I have to fill first and then I can submit. Without this, it doesn't allow to me. So you understood fully what the attribute of required is doing here. The role of the required attribute you saw. And we have the placeholder attribute, as I explained before. I'm sorry for this design. So it's not necessary. So the placeholder attribute provides a short hint or description of the expected input within a text field. So it means like the placeholder attributes provides a kind of hint for the user, or a kind of description what he or she needs to write to the input. So it disappears when the user starts typing to the input. For example, here as you can see we have a form. Again, inside we have label, so we don't need for the moment being label, and we have an input. And inside of our input, when we look at our placeholder attribute, we can see enter your email. This shows inside of the input, but it's not possible to delete or remove, or it's not possible to edit or something else. It's just a kind of text that, or a hint, for example, that describes what you will have to write inside of this input. I will show an example. For example, if we go to our like Instagram or Google, maybe Instagram is better, so I'll go instagram.com, and when we come back we are seeing this is an input, right? And inside of our input we are seeing this phone number, username or email kinda text. We cannot edit this or we cannot delete this, right? So this is working with the attribute of the placeholder. If you want, I can show you with kind of DevTools. It's easy to see and better to understand. So when we come back here, when I press here and when I make it this bigger, and we have a placeholder here, so I will just wait. Let's make here for a new tab, and if we look at in our Visual Studio Code to see better, so when we look at here we can find the placeholder. Okay, where's the placeholder? I think we didn't copy all. So let's go back again, and I'm so sorry for that, because they wrote in a span instead of writing it as a placeholder. Okay, this cannot be an example. Yep. So there are lots of, like, for example, if you write like placeholder input example to the Google search, you can easily find, like, yeah, from here also you can find it from W3 Schools website. So let's see in our practical. So I will put here input, the placeholder attribute, and I will write your name, because the user needs to fill this form, I mean this input, with his name. And as you can see we have a name. So I can write my name, Abu, and then I will submit it. As you can see when I start typing, it's not showing. You see? This is a great hint. So, and we have labels and form accessibility. So the label, as we know, it defines labels for form elements, which improves the accessibility to understand what we have to write to this form. The for attribute links the label to a specific input element by matching the input's ID. For example, we have an ID. As you can see, we have an input which is called username ID, and we have the form, a label with the attribute of for, and the for is containing also the same value with the ID name, right? So it matches with a specific input, which is a specific input as this input element, by matching the input's ID. If the input's ID is the same with the for, it means it matched. Right? You understand for what we use the for attribute in label. So form validation, and I will tell some key takeaways. We have basic form validation can be achieved using attributes like required, pattern, and min and max. So we are going to talk about pattern and min max in the next videos. But we learned about the attribute, which is the special one, which is required. And practice adding required and placeholder attributes to form fields and use labels for better accessibility. Forms can be further validated using JavaScript for custom rules, but HTML5 offers built-in features for common validation tasks. So HTML5 is offering to us like built-in features, which is the like for common validation tasks. For example, like required, placeholders, right? these are kind of functions for us. When we start learning JavaScript, you will see also a lot of functions that we can create by ourselves, or this kind of functions that requires or kind of placeholders like span as written in Instagram. So if you have any further questions, please comment out in the below, and thank you for watching. See you in the next videos.